Being nervous or shy in social situations is normal. Everyone feels like they are about to throw up before having a big presentation. However, there are also people who experience extreme nervousness in social situations. Social anxiety disorder is not something you can just turn on and off. People do not understand this. Saying that the anxious person should just get over it is not helpful. It is belittling what they are feeling. In this book, you will learn the difference between normal anxiety and anxiety disorders. You will know how to deal with each one. Finally, you will know how to live with having social anxiety. Anxiety 101. Author Ashley Greene was just as nervous as you a long time ago. Any form of interaction used to make her sweat like crazy. The thought of talking to someone new would fill her with dread. But now, Ashley is comfortable with standing in front of a crowd. She can now easily say yes when she is asked by her church to make a speech. Ashley can easily take all the credit. She could say that she did it all by herself. But there were a lot of factors that got her to where she is now, a confident woman who is not afraid of the spotlight. Before you can find out how she did it, you must know something first. What exactly is anxiety? Anxiety is a worried or uneasy feeling about something that is not certain. It could be how well or how bad you did on a test. It could be the feeling you get just when you are about to go skydiving. It could be the feeling as you wake up on your wedding day. Having anxiety is a normal human emotion, but anxiety disorders, on the other hand, are a completely different thing. Anxiety disorders are the extreme version of normal anxiety. Anxiety disorder is a mental condition. It can make you feel completely distressed or frightened in situations that are considered normal for everybody else. When you are in a particular situation, you feel helpless or paralyzed. You are in so much distress, you feel like you are unable to move. There are some of the most common anxiety disorders. Generalized anxiety is when you feel intense worry and nervousness in normal situations. Panic disorder is a feeling of terror that comes out of nowhere. The person can feel chest pain, heavy sweating, and palpitations. A panic attack feels so severe that the person feels like he is having a heart attack. Phobias are when you have an intense fear of particular objects or situations. It could be a dark room, insects, or riding a boat. A fear is considered a phobia when your daily living is affected by that fear. In other words, you try your hardest to avoid a particular object or situation, so much so that you inconvenience yourself and other people. Social anxiety is when you get anxious when it comes to interacting with people. You are constantly worried that you will make a fool out of yourself. You are afraid that you will get rejected or embarrassed. Now you know the most common anxiety disorders. But how can you tell if you are having normal anxiety or an anxiety disorder? You should look at the symptoms. The most common are the following. Sleepless nights. Has worrying kept you up all night? Do you feel like your heart rate quickens as you worry more and more about basic things in your life? For instance, going to the grocery in the morning? Sweaty hands and feet. There are a lot of physical manifestations of anxiety. Aside from an increased heart rate, cold and sweaty hands and feet are also present. Palpitations. If your heartbeat starts to pick up without any reason, it may be a sign of an anxiety disorder. Feeling like you cannot breathe, feeling nauseous, and you can't keep still are also symptoms. What is social anxiety? Social anxiety disorder is listed as the third biggest psychological disorder. The first two are depression and alcoholism. People with social anxiety suffer from extreme levels of shyness. Again, feeling shy is a normal human response. But people with social anxiety have shyness that can have negative effects on their life. For instance, it can stop them from meeting new people. It can stop them from having new experiences. It can make their grades suffer, or they could get fired. Here are some situations that can trigger social anxiety. Speaking in public, speaking with persons of authority, with an individual or a group of people. Some people get triggered by eating alone in public or doing anything that has a crowd. They also do not like to be the center of attention. They do not like to be watched in any kind of circumstance. What anxious people will feel in these situations is similar to the symptoms mentioned in the previous chapter. They will feel extremely uncomfortable. They will sweat a lot, blush, feel nauseous, and have heart palpitations. People with social anxiety hate the spotlight. They think that having everyone's attention on them will make it easy for people to criticize them. They do not think they are good in social situations. These people will think that they are unworthy of other people's time. People with social anxiety overthink everything. Suppose they go to a social event. When they go home, they overanalyze every little thing they did. They will think that what they said or what they did was wrong. Because of this, people with social anxiety will try to avoid any social event in the future. What causes social anxiety? The author Ashley Greene has identified the 7 most common theories of what causes social anxiety. First, behavioral. One reason as to why people have social anxiety is because of their past. When a child touches a hot oven, the pain will remind them never to touch an oven again. The hurt will stay with them. This can also be applied to social anxiety. Perhaps a person was humiliated or embarrassed in a social situation. The experience stayed with him. Thus, he is afraid to put himself in the same situation again. Second, thinking. How a person sees each situation also greatly contributes to the development of social anxiety. For instance, you're about to speak in front of an audience because it is your friend's wedding. Anyone will normally feel a certain amount of nervousness, but a person with social anxiety thinks the worst of the situation. He will think that he will definitely mess up his speech. He will think that everyone will judge him because he will forget a word or two. This negative thinking is so severe that the person will refuse to do it ever again. Third, evolutionary. It is human nature to be a social being. Our ancestors had to form bonds in order to survive all those years ago. But other people refuse the benefits of having company. They are afraid that they will get rejected. They do not want to feel like they are forcing themselves on other people. So, people with social anxiety take the initiative not to bond. It saves them the pain of not being chosen as a friend or a partner. Fourth, biological. Take a look at your family. There is a high chance that you have inherited your social anxiety. Genetic makeup is a huge factor when it comes to psychological disorders. Fifth, traumatic or bad experiences. It is unavoidable that a person will experience something bad in their life. It is just how it is. But a traumatic event can be the start of why a person becomes socially anxious. For instance, bullying can leave a mark on a person. The feeling of being odd or unacceptable will stay with you. Sixth, the demands of life. A period in your life is not necessarily bad or traumatic to leave its mark on you. Sometimes, a series of events that happens to you can contribute to you being more anxious than normal. For instance, as a young adult, you begin to have a sense of independence. Realizing that your life is up to you can be an intimidating responsibility to some. Seventh, stresses of the present. According to Ashley, there are 2 types of stress that can affect a person's anxiety levels. These 2 stresses are significant moves and significant changes. Significant moves are when a person cuts ties with a person that is dear to him. For instance, family or friends. Significant changes are the results of the significant moves. These changes affect how a person relates to others. The person might feel lonely when he loses touch with childhood friends, for instance. It can be hard to say that a person's social anxiety just came from one cause. One cause can trigger other causes. For instance, a child does not like to present in front of his classmates. It could be because he embarrassed himself in front of a crowd the year before. But this embarrassment could also be due to the fact that his mother has an anxiety disorder. Instant hits for quick social anxiety relief. Just because you are not clinically diagnosed with social anxiety disorder does not mean you don't get nervous. There will be plenty of instances in your life where you feel yourself freeze from shyness. You might be asked to fill in for a presentation your coworker was supposed to give. Your shyness might stop you from going after a promotion you deserve. These examples are not as critical if you do not have social anxiety disorder. You can probably forget about the embarrassment in a couple of days, but that does not mean that you should not take them seriously. Do you know why? It is because social anxiety can stop you from living life to your fullest. It will stop you from grabbing opportunities you are meant to have. So, what should you do when social anxiety strikes? Here are several things that you can do. Before you continue reading, just a quick reminder. This is ideal for socially anxious people who are not medically diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. First, you can do nothing. You have read it right. Before you proceed to know about relief tactics, consider doing nothing. Consider your anxiety as muddy water. Sometimes you just have to let the muddy water be for it to clear up. When you do not do anything to it, the dirt will settle at the bottom. The water will be clear again. That is like anxiety. Sometimes it will go away on its own if you do not try to get rid of it. Second, don't breathe too much. One of the symptoms of social anxiety is hyperventilating. It happens when you think you are not getting enough air, so you try to inhale as much as possible. What you can do here is to take deep and long breaths so that you can calm down. You can even count your breathing to further regulate your breathing. Third, think that this too shall pass. You feel awful now. You might feel like you can never show your face again. But there is power in saying to yourself that what you are feeling now is temporary. You will not feel like this forever. Sure, people might have laughed at you. Sure, you might never forget it. But soon enough, you will realize that the moment is insignificant. It will not destroy your life. The sooner you realize this, the less anxious you will feel. Fourth, talk to yourself. Yes, this sounds crazy, but it has actually helped people get rid of the anxious feeling that they have. Talking to yourself distracts you from fully paying attention to your anxiety. But how exactly do you do it? You should take on a positively assertive tone rather than a passive-aggressive one. For instance, you talk to yourself as you wait for your turn to speak in front of an audience. You can say, "You are calm and relaxed." This is positive assertive. Meanwhile, saying "I am not anxious and stressed" is passive-aggressive. You can also solve problems or use affirmations when you talk to yourself. Solving problems such as riddles or math problems is a helpful distraction. Meanwhile, affirmations can help you boost your confidence while also calming you down. Affirmations might sound silly at first, but you will soon feel how empowering they can be. You can affirm that while you are anxious, you are still going to do well. Or you can say that you are bigger than your anxiety. Remembering pleasant experiences can also be helpful. Think about the times when you felt the most at peace. It could be enjoying a hot cup of coffee while it was raining outside. It could be taking a nap as you lay on a hammock. These calm moments might help get rid of the anxiety. Self-help tactics for managing your social anxiety. The previous chapter was for people who are not diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. For this chapter, these techniques are for people who are clinically diagnosed. There are two things a socially anxious person can do. He can either employ self-help or seek professional help. There are three tactics under the self-help option. These are worrying for anxiety relief, know if the anxiety trigger is solvable, and banishing unhelpful thoughts. First, worrying for anxiety relief. This tactic might sound weird, but you will never know if it is effective for you unless you try. This tactic tells you to make worrying a frequent thing. Worrying will help you manage your anxiety better. You might be asking yourself, why on earth is frequent worrying effective? It is because it helps you meet your quota of worrying. If you worry about things regularly, you will get over it eventually. It is like indulging yourself at a buffet. You eat so much of your favorite food that you no longer want it. Frequent worrying is similar to that. You will have better control of your anxiety if you tire yourself out from constant worrying. Having a schedule where you worry also has another good effect. You are training yourself to experience anxiety when it is a good time for you. For instance, you schedule your worry over a presentation while you are on the way to work. By the time you do give the presentation, you are done worrying about it. Second, know if the anxiety trigger is solvable. The last thing you want to do is to think about the situations that can trigger your social anxiety, but it is needed for this technique. Know if your anxiety trigger is solvable or not. Once you know this, you can act accordingly. That is, if you can do something about it or if you can minimize being exposed to the trigger. There are two ways to know if you can solve a trigger or not. First, is the trigger a real problem or an imaginary one? Really think about the situation you are in. Is it a legitimate trigger, or is your mind just exaggerating the concern? For instance, are you certain that you will absolutely get criticized for your output, even if last month you were praised by your boss for having a consistent and excellent job performance? Next, are you in the position to actually do something about it? For instance, you want to introduce yourself to a CEO at a networking event. You want to work with him, but you are hesitant to approach him. He might ridicule or laugh at you. However, acknowledging that you cannot control his reaction soothes your anxiety. It is out of your hands when it comes to other people's reactions of you. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you will be less anxious. Third, banishing unhelpful thoughts. Thoughts are powerful. You can either use them to your advantage or let them overwhelm you. It is easier said than done, but you have to try. What if you think your thoughts are barriers? Then realize that barriers can be destroyed. Your thoughts are not facts. They are not the truth. How do you banish unhelpful thoughts? It is by first being aware of your patterns. Once you know what your pattern of unhelpful thinking is, you can challenge and destroy it. Here are 5 common patterns. First, predicting the future. You get upset when you tire yourself out from thinking about what will happen, but the thing is, absolutely no one knows what will happen. You are wasting energy and time over nothing. Second, mind reading. You automatically assume that people are thinking negatively of you, but have you ever considered that you have no concrete evidence of this? Again, remember that your thoughts are not the truth. Mind reading will only lower your self-confidence. Third, taking things personally. The world does not revolve around you. Just because someone is quiet does not mean they hate you. If you have not done anything wrong, then there is no reason for them to be mad at you. Fourth, overgeneralizing. Do not apply one result to every situation you are in. Just because you messed up your presentation does not mean you will always mess up when you speak. Fifth, focusing on the negatives. As mentioned, socially anxious people spend time thinking about what they thought they did wrong in a social situation. They turn a positive interaction into a negative one. Now that you know the common patterns, identify which one you use the most. Then, challenge that pattern the minute you become aware of it. For instance, you are used to predicting the future. You might think that meeting someone new will go terribly. But ask yourself, what evidence do you have to say this? You have met strangers before. You did well in those situations. In fact, you did so well that those strangers became your friends. What if you told a friend how you thought meeting them for the first time would go bad? What do you think she will say? She would probably laugh and tell you that you were worrying over nothing. And she is right. You worried over nothing. Now imagine yourself 6 months from now. What do you think your future self would think of your present self? Would you be worrying about meeting someone new even after 6 months? Being anxious does not come with an on and off switch. You cannot just conveniently stop your overthinking. However, you can use it to your advantage. Look at every possible situation in a positive way. What if things go wrong? Well, try to think, what if things go right? First, you learned about the difference between diagnosed anxiety and normal anxiety. Being nervous or anxious about things is natural. It becomes worrying when your anxiety is not proportionate to the situation. The kind of anxiety being focused on is social anxiety. This is when a person becomes nervous in all sorts of social situations. They cannot sleep when they think about interacting with other people. Their heart rate picks up, their hands and feet get cold, and they have trouble breathing. Second, you learned that there are several factors that cause social anxiety. It could be behavioral, cognitive, evolutionary, or biological in origin. Traumatic experiences, the demands of life, and stresses of the present could also be the cause. Third, you learned about different ways to relieve social anxiety. It is important to note that these techniques are effective for those who experience normal anxiety. It might not work for people who are diagnosed with social anxiety. These techniques include doing nothing, regulating your breathing, and acknowledging that the anxious feeling will pass. Talking to yourself can also help. Saying affirmations, remembering good memories, or solving problems is effective too. Fourth, you learned about self-help tactics for people with diagnosed social anxiety. Professional help is also advised, but since professional help cannot always be available, self-help is a good tool. These tactics are worrying for anxiety relief, knowing if the trigger is solvable or not, and banishing unhelpful thoughts. For some, their social anxiety never goes away. It is a part of themselves they have to live with. But by using the techniques mentioned in this book, the disorder is not that much of a hassle. It just takes practice and time to control your anxiety. But know that you can do it. You can still live life the way you want it. You can still enjoy and be happy with the people around you. If you loved this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content. Thank you for watching.